All right, you know how I'm showing you the circle and I'm not showing you like the list of formulas? There's some formulas that you'll need a list of formulas, but I'm trying to show you without formulas because those aren't things that I remember. Like those formulas are not ones that I remember. That means I'm in math. I don't remember them. That means that I don't use them ever. So I'm trying to show you things that you can use that are sustainable and useful. The unit circle is useful. Knowing a random small formula in the middle of my class, you won't remember it. 10 years from now, you won't remember me and you won't remember that. So I'm trying to show you things of why something is there. So if you never take a math class again, maybe you'll help your kid with it. Maybe that'll be the next time you use it. Or maybe you'll be like some of the people I work with. I work with medical doctors all the time. And so, you know, I'll have to tell them sometimes, this is what a cosine does and this is what it is. But you could be that medical doctor that says, I know what this is. I like trig. So how do you simplify this one? Well, you need a list of formulas. These formulas are all over the place. These are called the sum formulas, where you have the sum of angle formulas. They're on the inside covers of your ebook, so they should be, if you look at the inside covers, they should have these formulas there, but they're all over. So if you say, I want my trig formulas in Google, they'll give you some site that has it. And that's where I got this. And I put it in this PowerPoint. The very last slides are all the formulas that I had to pull off of a table. So who's gonna ask me? Is that table going to be given to me during the test? Who's gonna ask that? There you go. She's brave, right? The way I'm going to tell it is if I have it memorized, then you got to have it memorized. I don't have this memorized, right? So this one is not one I have memorized. So that one you'll get. You won't get cosine squared plus sine squared is 1, and you won't get 1 plus tangent squared is all those other ones, because I don't have I have those, I know how to get those. This one I look up. I never see it again. So I need to use that. I picked that one off because if you look at it, it has cosine blah minus sine blah, and the problem that I had is sine blah. It's almost like it, right? So only problem is that this thing is in the wrong order. I need the cosines to be second and the sines to be first. So how do I turn it around? What do I do to turn it around? Gotta speak loud. That's right. See, it's like those same things show up, but in a different context. Factor out a minus sign. I just did this earlier in some totally unrelated problem, and I'm using it again. So they turn around, and now it looks exactly like the guy up there. So what's my alpha and beta? Alpha is 67, beta is 18. Plug into the formula, turn the crank, out comes cosine 85. But I got to get rid of that minus sign. So if I hit both sides of the minus sign, I get negative cosine 85. Good? Good? I remember this was a doozy. Why do I remember this? No, that wasn't too bad. You know what, I'm going to skip over this one. This is very similar to the other one I just did. It just has more x's and y's in it. I'm going to move to 12. These were bad. That's pretty bad if your professor's telling you these are bad before we even start. But these are bad. Here's why they're bad. They're messy. You have to find the exact value of sine of x plus y. That tells you that you're going to use the sum formulas. So I'm going to pull that sum formula off. So it's not that I have the sum formula memorized. I know it exists. And if I need it, I'll look it up. And if you need it, you'll look it up. You just need to know it exists. There's a sum formula. So I need that. Well, I got those two, sine x and cosine y. They gave it to me. Sine x is 1/4 and cosine y is minus 4/5. The problem is they didn't give me cosine x and sine y. You see it? Now it's messy. I need that cosine x and sine y. Why is it messy? Because I got to find the hypotenuse of a triangle to get that. So for example, sine x is the opposite over a hypotenuse, which I know is 1/4 because they gave it to me. That tells me that the hypotenuse is 4 and the opposite is 1. So that's given to me. Now that I know the opposite, I just made up a triangle. The missing side is the adjacent. If I knew the adjacent, then I could get cosine of x, because the cosine of x is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's the missing piece I need. So how do I get it? Pythagorean's theorem. Leg squared plus leg squared is hypotenuse squared, or the square root of leg squared plus leg squared is hypotenuse. So I know that the hypotenuse is 4. I don't know this side. I know this side. I plug them all into the Pythagorean formula. I square both sides. If I square both sides, the hat goes off, and the 4 gets squared. And I did some of this, it was just getting too long. 4 squared is 16, minus 1 is 15. So I get a 15 on the other side. So adjacent squared is equal to 15. How do I get the adjacent? I square root both sides. That gives me the adjacent. So cosine x is adjacent over hypotenuse, square root of 15 over 4. And it's not quite square root of 15 over 4. I'm going to explain that in a second. Now I got the cosine. I got to do the same work for the sine. So cosine y is minus 4/5. The hypotenuse is 5. The adjacent is negative 4. It's not anything hard. It's just, it's the same work again. It's tedious. Plug them all in. I get square both sides of the same machine. Same machine. Opposite squared is 9. Square root of 9, thankfully, is a decent number. It's 3. So the sine of y is 3/5. You following the procedure? So I'm given something about the triangle, but not all the information. So I have to get the missing piece to get the cosine of that missing angle, or the sine of that missing angle. Now I've got the cosine, which is square root of 15 over 4. I got the sine, which is 3/5. I got it by that procedure that I just did. Now I know the stuff to fill in into these two pieces. So now I can fill them in. I know this, I know this. Why is it minus here? Well, that's a really important question. It's because they told me that, oh, I guess they didn't tell me. Oh yeah, they did tell me. They told me x and y are in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, cosine's negative. So that's why this is negative. And I filled in by color where each of the things came from. That came from the yellow, this came from the blue, this came from the green, and this came from the pink. Oh, you know why I wanted to say mistake? Because x and y are angles. You don't really say the angles are in the second quadrant. You would say the sine and the cosine are in the second quadrant, but I'll let them go. All right, so I simplified it down, and I ended up getting the answer they got. Right there. That's a relief, right, after all that work?